As of the publishing of this video, humans are on their way to the moon for the first time in my lifetime, in many of our lifetimes. And being the space nerd channel that this is, I wanted to visualize the real one-to-one orbit in 3D and compare it to Apollo 8 and Artemis 1. But in doing so, I've realized that I didn't know much about the moon's orbit.
Oh, wow.
I knew the tides go in and the tides go out, and I could explain that, but there is so much more detail that I didn't know about it. So let's take a look at the trajectories of Artemis 1 and 2 and their spiritual predecessor, Apollo 8.
Okay,
but also,
chat, I actually, guys, the other chat, I failed at KSP, but I swear I know this if I'm locked in. I swear I know this. I swear.
So the orbit of the moon itself, which is kind of weird. To start off with, this is the Earth and the moon to scale. After doing all these interstellar videos, it's nice to be able to see something from scale that's actually intelligible. The moon's orbit is almost perfectly circular too, which is kind of
I know the moon moves, 43. But when you set up a maneuver, it'll compute the moon's movement. Because I wasn't using the tool, I kept forgetting you cannot just eyeball it. When you use the maneuver tool, it shows you when you're gonna be in it with the projections.
Surprising to me, its eccentricity is only 0.05%, which from this distance, from any distance really, you can't tell the difference between a perfect circle and that. But it is slightly offset, which means that there's about 26,000 miles between the lowest and highest orbital points, which are called periapsis and apoapsis. And if you're not a space nerd or a Kerbal Space Program enthusiast, periapsis and apoapsis are the names for the lowest and highest points in an orbit. But there are also other terms you might hear like perigee and apogee, which I thought were synonymous for a long time, but they're not. The difference is that apoapsis and periapsis are universal to all orbits, and perigee and apogee are specific to orbits around the Earth. Likewise, the moon has its own version of this for objects orbiting it. Perilune and apollune. Also periselene and aposelene. So there's always more than one term in astronomy terms. I'm going to be started. We're going to look at this from the heliocentric plane of the solar system, the plane of the planets, not the Earth's.
So it does this, right, Chat? So Chat, it does this, right? Wham, 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 wham. And it offsets. It's not just like this, right? Equator,
which this is how it's tilted from this frame of reference. On this frame of reference, the moon's orbit is tilted 5.1 degrees, so you can kind of see how that looks here. And it makes one complete orbit around the Earth once every 27.3 days. And I am a little embarrassed to admit that it doesn't seem like the moon orbits the Earth. You look at it and it looks like it's facing you the whole time, and that's because it's tidally locked, which I had a hard time wrapping my head around, honestly. The way I ended up trying to understand it and the way I'm going to visualize it here is to exaggerate the gravitational pull the Earth and the moon exhibit on each other. Billions of years ago, after the moon took shape, it was freely spinning, but it wasn't and still isn't a perfect sphere. It has a little tidal bulge to it, which I've greatly exaggerated here into this egg shape. But that little bulge was enough so that with every spin, the Earth's gravity tugged on the moon, slowing its spin down until it came to rest. This is tidal locking, and it's the same force as you might imagine that creates the tides on Earth in reverse. If there was an ocean on the moon...
Because it's ellipse-shaped, as it's spinning, it's pulling the long face down, and it's slowing down. It's why it's doing that.
There would be a permanent high tide and low tide. And by the way, the moon does exert a force on the Earth's spin too, and our days are getting 2.3 milliseconds longer per century. So I guess we got that going for us. Before we get to the Artemis missions, I want to go back in time and look at Apollo 8. Apollo 8 was the first time humans ever flew around the moon. It was in 1968, and it was a big deal back then. So here's one of the main questions I wanted to answer in this video. We look at this orbit. If you're a space nerd, and maybe you saw my video on constant thrust space travel, you know that we don't travel in straight lines usually. Orbits don't look like this. They're smooth arcs. So why does this basically look like a straight line Berkeisterchrone trajectory? Partially it's because they do want to minimize the time spent in space, because unlike Kerbals, humans require food and air and are susceptible to radiation. So they end up using a little more delta V maybe. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is the difference in speed between something at low Earth orbit and the moon is huge. So if you're in a circular orbit around Earth, your periapsis and apoapsis are both around 7,800 meters per second. And when you burn at periapsis to raise your apoapsis to get to the moon, because of Keplerian physics, you stay in the same place, but your apoapsis gets higher and, perhaps counterintuitively, slower. Where you are at periapsis gets faster even though you don't really move anywhere noticeable. In this example, the orbital speed slows down to almost a hover at 193 meters per second. It's like throwing a ball into the air, except for not.
I know this. I understand this.
Changing that much speed in that short of a distance is what creates this highly eccentric orbit. In contrast, Earth and Mars are much closer in velocity and also much further away from
if you maintain the angle of attack, right, and you keep accelerating, right, that ellipse will skyrocket all the way out until you stop the burn. So you line your shit up properly, and then you stop burning, and then boom.
So it's so a proportionally smaller change. That's why those transfers look more circular. If we add back in the moon's gravity, we can see how it sort of pulls the ship into more of a straight line and kind of sucks it into orbit. That's why it looks like a straight line. And space nerds, I'm sure, will note that at some point the ship enters the moon's sphere of influence, which is when the moon's gravity exerts more influence than the Earth's gravity. But changing to that frame of reference is confusing and only really necessary if you're doing patched conic math and or orbital maneuvers around another body. There are many perspectives to view things from in space. From one perspective, a case could be made that the moon is not orbiting the Earth, but orbiting the sun. And Minute Physics has a great video on this explaining that perspective. But we're going to keep this from an Earth-centered inertial...
Oh, dodecagon. Chat, is it simultaneously, chat, like, being pulled by both? That's why it's doing this deviation like that?
An Earth-centered inertial point of view, because it best illustrates what I'm trying to visualize. 3 days after launch, Apollo 8 entered orbit of the moon and burned to circularize their orbit at about 69 miles above the...
Because there's always a bigger fish to fry. As in, there's always a bigger thing making us deviate towards some other shit. And some other shit deviate from other... Because there's always a bigger thing that is pulling somehow, no?
Surface. This is what a circular orbit looks like from the Earth's point of view. And it was at this point, after about 4 orbits, when the famous Earthrise photo was taken. Just a quick historical note. Although we remember Apollo 11 as the historic moment of the Apollo program, the real initial shock of the moon program was Apollo 8. Historians have noted its impact on the culture at the time and arguably since. And also, behind the Iron Curtain, this was a huge blow to the Soviets' morale. In the amazing book, if you haven't read it, Challenge to Apollo, Asif Siddiqui paints a seldomly shown picture of the Soviets' perspective on the space race. He describes this moment as a moment where they feel like they lost the race right then and there. Of course, we wouldn't know this for decades to come. Obviously, the Apollo 8 astronauts didn't know this either. They were still orbiting the moon, which is awesome. And after a few more orbits, a total of 10 orbits, they burned back.
What if the Soviets didn't give a shit about all this bullshit, and they were never even close of getting there? And they were just pretending that they were going to go so that the U.S. would bankrupt themselves.
Again, to come from the moon. Re-entering from the lunar orbit is notoriously difficult. You'd think we're just coming back from the same point we came from, right? Well, remember how we burned at periapsis to get to the moon? We raised our speed from 8,000 to 11,000 meters per second, which might not sound like a lot, but 3,000 meters per second is not kind to materials. The heat shield needed is nearly twice as much. From low Earth orbit, it needs to withstand about 1,500 C versus a lunar heat shield that needs to withstand 2,800. This is why currently the Orion capsule is the only operational spacecraft that can return from the moon. SpaceX's Starship isn't currently designed to re-enter at those speeds.
Really?
Maybe the eagle-eye viewers might have noticed this little gap in the moon's orbit. That's not a mistake. You remember how I said the moon's orbit is offset? Well,
so it's possible to come back too fast.
It's not just offset. It moves every orbit. Its inclination stays the same, but the sun pulls the whole orbit forward just a little bit. It's called precession. And it actually precesses around 3 different axes, which is why it's not in the exact same change every orbit. It has a little bit of organic noise nature to it. But the precession that is obviously visible is this hula hoop axial precession, which the moon completes a full cycle of every 18.6 years.
Oh, so it's not a sphere entirely. It's just a cycling offset.
Here it is again from the side. What that means is that in the 54 years between Apollo 8 and Artemis 1, the moon has gone through 3 complete precession cycles. The Artemis 1 mission was launched unmanned in 2022, and it was much longer than either Apollo 8 or Artemis 2. It was in space for over 25 days.
Looks like a yo-yo.
And maybe this was more like a Kerbal launch because there's no food or air consumption by humans to worry about. And it also came much closer to the surface of the moon than Artemis 2 will. And at this point in the
Whoa, what the fuck is that? What kind of fucking technique is this?
Orbit, it was within 81 miles of the lunar surface. And as you can see, it also has a much different orbit. They call it distant retrograde orbit, which is just sort of hanging out in high orbit in the moon's sphere of influence until it coasts back.
Retrograde, Chad, is when you push against
within range and gets flung back at Earth. Something interesting to me about these return trajectories was that they all swing low and under the ecliptic plane and re-enter at a very steep inclination, almost polar. And I asked around to my friend who works at NASA, but we weren't able to get word from the actual orbital mechanical people why this exactly is. Our best guess is that it is a byproduct of the requirements for re-entry angles and also the nature of a fuel-efficient return trajectory from the moon. Artemis 2 is also dramatically different than Apollo 8 or Artemis 1. And interestingly, you can see how its orbit indicates NASA's priorities. It's all about safety and risk management. After launch, the ship is put into a highly eccentric parking orbit so that systems can be tested at high altitude before getting to the moon at all. So in case there's a problem, they can return quickly. The same goes for the lunar orbit. After TLI burn, the ship is on a free return trajectory so that if anything goes wrong, it will still return to the Earth without any intervention. But that also means that their orbit will be much higher than Apollo 8 or Artemis 1, with the closest approach to the moon at 4,000 miles. Just kind of a bummer.
Chat, so they burn, then they stop, then burn again at the start of the apex over here, right?
And after only 4 hours near the moon, the ship will return to Earth.
Chat, there's a little bit more than I thought you had to calculate on this motherfucker. Chat.
There you have it.
Eventually, you're some engineer, and he sends the people to space, whatever. You go, oh my god, we forgot about the offset coefficient, bro. We forgot about the space moon conundrum.
Completely different orbits for 3 different missions.
We forgot.
Can't wait until we actually put boots on the ground again, though, and see it all in 4K color glory. And I personally think it's entirely possible that we will have a moon settlement in our lifetimes, and that there is a high probability that ordinary people like you or me may get the chance to go up there. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe for more space and sci-fi videos. If they had told me in high school you could define the orbit of a spaceship with math, I would have paid more attention. But I still would have needed to visualize it somehow, and thankfully in the 20 years since I was in high school, there is something better now. Brilliant. I'm brilliant.
Well, I'm sure they have enough fuel for extremely minimal errors, like minimal, right? I mean... Chat, what is on Mercury? Thermometers. Chat, this looks livable. No? Chat, am I wrong? Chat, this looks like you could live there. Is that an atmosphere?
This is why space is fake, bro. How did they get these HD videos of the planets spinning? PLS explained.
It's Earth-like, yeah. Okay. Chat, a lot of people say this is a bad take. why doesn't the sun run out of fuel? Like, if all it does is burn, why doesn't it run out? But why is it so long for it to run out then? Chat, I don't really get this though. Black hole thing. Like, what happens if you go there? Nobody knows exactly. Chat, I'm gonna say it. Chat, for all of you that want that will travel through time, let me make this clear. You cannot travel through time. It's GG. GG. We could never, as a species that we are. Chat, when you get really close, you would get stretched though. Right? Even a 1 millimeter increment would stretch your neurons in your brain, and you would easily get incremental brain damage every singular small part that you're going up. Like, it would warp everything. The axons would rip.
xqcL 67 Alien PLS3.
Chat, why are those all like suns? Like, I think all these are suns or
so
like fucking molten. Why aren't they just
Nothing
rocks?
there to be destroyed. I already have brain damage from watching this stream. GG.
Gargantua? Okay. Scientists will find one cool thing out of all the bullshit in this space. They'll find the coolest shit they found, and they name it the S5 space 0014 plus 81. They could just say, yo, this is, I don't know, this is, Jello, or I can't think of anything. Yo, like, this is the Black Knight. Galactus! Galacticon!
Fake Jesse is not in this one.
Head horse. Head horse. Like, who said and named this shit? Yo, that one was nice though. No, bad name. Chat, this is crab. Chat, do you see it? Chat, this is a crab. Pincer 1, pincer 2, head, back of the body. Chat, it's a crab. It's Crabus. Apple already did this, by the way. Yes, Apple did this, no?
Hello chat, hellos fellas.
Wait, what? Wait. I thought we were the Milky Way. question for the people that finally the nerds are gonna wake up. Do these guys pull us? Like, would you have to? Do you have to compute everybody else to see where we're going? So, okay, so by reference, we could be going sideways at like fucking 7,000 million galaxies per second. Like we could be time traveling. No, technically, we are time traveling. Wait, by comparison to others, we are time traveling. Maybe that's what time is, chat. It's the distance between one and the other. That's all time is. Wait, no, that makes sense. They said that. They said that already. Brother, we won't ever be able to see any of it or do anything, because we're just a fucking.
Please keep.
We're just a whatever.
Cracking the code of life, bro. I know you.
Like we're just like fucking. We're yo.
NASA
chat,
is calling.
Think about it. Look at the size of this shit. Look at what is out there, and we're just like fucking bones and whatever the fuck. We can barely fucking survive. We can barely keep our planet in check for us to survive. And there's all this out there. Like, we are shit. Chat. People say, oh, I spawned in this country, I spawned in this country. Buddy, we spawned on Earth. Like, imagine the other guys on fucking Sirius B13 or whatever the fuck that are balling the fuck out. These are fucking time traveling, space seeking, fucking, and we're out here doing what? Fucking watching TikToks and shit. We're out here doing light on the screen. Oi, 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 oi. Like, why couldn't we spawn somebody else, somewhere else? I'm not gonna watch this. This is a dumb video. I'm not gonna watch this. This has 25 million views. Is he gonna send the moon to the Earth? Say hey, New York first then. Hey. Oh, because it would pull the water. Yeah, the gentleman chat is like Mario Metal. He's unfazed by any sort of wind. Loud. Why the plane though?
Hi chat.
Chat, would we feel the impact in Australia if that hit New York? Let me ask you this. Wouldn't everybody get collateral damage and instantly die if a big impact was big enough?
That's stuff.
Yeah, you would. Chat, is the moon big enough that he would receive some rocks back at him? Oh, the shockwave would fuck him over. Terminal velocity? I don't think that would apply here. What? Because it maintains speed, what? Oh yeah, oh yeah. It slowly is gonna break down. Buddy, it would easily blow the fuck up. Huh?
Love you xQc Steam happy.
What if we put jetpacks on the side of the Earth and we just move away from the trajectory a little bit? See? He's right. Chat, he's right.